Hello everyone, welcome to IASbaba. So in this session, we are going to understand one of the important concepts in ancient history, that is Dhamma concept of Ashoka. So what we are going to learn in this particular session, we will just see the background for this particular aspect, that is the Dhamma concept. Then what are the reasons for Ashoka to bring this particular policy, and at the same time we will also understand the contents of Dhamma and how we can interrelate with some of the medieval concepts also. At the same time, some of the modern concepts also, particularly we can also interlink with our constitution too. So how Dhamma's concepts are integrated into India's diversity aspects, at the same time how we have consolidated that diversity into unity. So right from the beginning, since ancient history, okay, so rulers like Ashoka, so they tried to mold India's diversity into one kind of consolidated society. Okay, so same thing we can also see in Akbar's Salekal policy as well as Dinlai policy. At the same time, during the freedom movement also, the leaders fought for consolidating the India's diversity into one particular unified nation, and that is how all these concepts got integrated into our constitution making too. So these are the different interlinking aspects we can understand through one particular concept, that is Ashoka's Dhamma. So now we know Ashoka's time period would be somewhere 300 BC to 200 BC. So that is a rough time period. There the Mauryan dynasty, that's what we are talking about. But before this one, okay, so before, just we need to understand a little bit of background for this particular concept to come into existence. Now, what is the background? So now, what is the background for Ashoka's Dhamma? Just we need to have a little bit of clarity about the timelines. So when we take into timelines of ancient history, so we go back to 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Okay, so this is our Rigvedic time period, and from 1000 BC to 600 BC. So this is our later Vedic time period, and from 600 BC to 300 BC, and this is our age of Buddha. Okay, age of Buddha. Then again we can also call it as second urbanization. Okay, then again Mahajanapadas. Okay, and age of Mahavira also. Okay, it is at same time period, Mahavira. Then again Buddha, then Ajivikas, Charavakas. So different ideologies were emerging. Okay, and then from 300 to 200 BC. So this is where we are in this discussion, that is Mauryan dynasty. And within Mauryan dynasty, we are talking about one particular person, the one particular king, that is the great Ashoka, and one of his policies, that is Dhamma policy. So these are just a background about this one. Now, what was happening in this time period, especially in Indian history? That is, society was organizing a different hierarchy, that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Okay, at the same time, there is a reaction against that one particular aspect of society, particularly due to the discriminatory nature, and that reaction took some ideologies of Buddhism, ideology of Buddha, Mahavira, Ajivikas, Charavakas. They challenged the existing orthodox system. Okay, and now because of these things, that between 600 BC to 300 BC, which directly challenged the supremacy of few sections, now diversity in the society was increasing. At the same time, I told you it is also a second urbanization time period. Okay, second urbanization. Cities were growing, merchant life was increasing, agriculture was growing rapidly, especially in the Gangetic Valley, because we talk about dynasties like Magadhan Empire. Of course, Mauryan Empire is also Magadhan Empire, because that is where in the Magadha region, that is where the Mauryan Empire got consolidated. Now, many other dynasties were emerging, and all those dynasties were consolidated into Mauryan Empire. Now, due to this political stability, the urban life was also increasing. Because of the urban life, the status of Shudras were also increasing, the status of Vaishyas were also increasing. So, this was the background. So, because of this diversity during 600 to 300 BC and between 300 to 200 BC, particularly in social aspects or economic aspects, conflicts were growing in the society. So, when we look at the reasons for Ashoka's Dhamma, so when we can better understand why Ashoka wanted to bring this one particular policy over here. Okay, so let's look at just some little bit introduction about this, what is Dhamma and everything. So we can understand what exactly Dhamma once we conclude our discussion when we look at the contents of Dhamma. But as of now, what Ashoka's Dhamma, it's a different meaning is there. Dhamma is the word we use in Prakrit, and the same Dharma is the word we use in Sanskrit. Okay, so according to the present understanding, okay, so what historians have given different meanings to Dhamma, that is, it could be righteousness, because some people have the misconception that Ashoka was trying to bring a new religion. No, it was not. It was not a new faith. It did not have any kind of scriptures or something like that. Right? It did not have any kind of priestly classes. It was trying to bring one kind of an order that can be called a social or religious order. That is a basic meaning. That is a we can say most. Okay, so that is one of the meanings that is more relatable to Dhamma. That is a kind of universal law or social or religious order, started around 269 BC. So, and how do we know about Dhamma policy? Some of his inscriptions. Okay, Ashoka's inscriptions are there. That Ashoka's inscription, that we can say major rock inscription and minor rock inscription. Then again, a major pillar inscription and minor pillar inscription. And we understand Ashoka's Dhamma through major rock edicts or major rock inscriptions. Okay, so this is where the concept of Dhamma is much emphasized. So that's what we are going to understand. We are going to understand that 14 major rock edicts, and Dhamma, of course, usually inspired from Buddhism, but not completely. It is not entirely influenced by Buddhism, because the influences of other religions, other ideas can also be, we can say, in Dhamma. It is just a moral principles we can talk about. That's what we can say righteousness. It's a universal law that everybody could approve of. It is a kind of a social and religious order to bring harmony in society because of increasing conflicts. But why that conflicts are increasing, we'll come to. And again, I keep emphasizing, it was not a religion, it is not a faith. Okay, at the same time, it was not an arbitrarily formed kind of a policy. It's not like Ashoka one day woke up and he wanted to bring them a policy. It was not like that one, because there is a considerable thought behind this policy. It was a very imaginative policy to consolidate all the diversity that was emerging in Indian history during that point of time, especially after 600 to 300 BC. Economically, okay, socially, as well as in religious aspects, a lot of diversity was increasing. So this is a basic introduction about Ashoka's Dhamma. Okay, say now what are the reasons? Like I've already mentioned about those reasons. The root cause of Dhamma, or we can say the major influence of Dhamma, comes from how the society, religion, as well as economic conditions of that particular point of time. So the social conditions of 300 BC to 200 BC, we start to take some kind of shape from 600 BC onwards itself only. The economic condition, the religious condition, all those things influenced. And we will understand one by one what were social conditions, what are the religious condition, and what are the economic conditions. Okay, so interplay of all these things played a very important role. Okay, because one influenced the other. How the economy was shaping up, that influenced society, and how the society was shaping up, that influenced new ideas, new religious ideas. Okay, now first look at the social reasons. What are social conditions during that point of time? Because I told you, because of this hierarchical system in the society, okay, that hierarchy into different classes, or we can say we call them as different varnas. Okay, there are 4 different varnas. So because of this varna system, because of this hierarchy, there was the hostility in the society. Okay, so that is, we can say, hostility means we know there is conflicts. Okay, the conflicting kind of situation during that point of time, particularly the Shudras' hostility towards upper varnas, because even though the Shudras' position started to improve ever so slightly, okay, at the same time they were not finding respect in their own society. Especially they were not finding any kind of we can say respect in terms of spirituality. They were left behind. Okay, the spirituality was becoming more and more materialistic. So they were looking for alternatives, and they found alternatives in new ideologies, that is Buddhism and Jainism. Okay, and not just that one. At the same time, a variety of cultures were also becoming part of the empire, because we're talking about the first empire of India, that is the Mauryan Empire between 300 to 200 BC, and his empire was expanding rapidly by including all the 16 Mahajanapadas, expanding into South India also. Now, as the empire expanded, the varieties of cultures were becoming part of one empire, and that again increased social tensions. There was an increasing gap between these cultures. Okay, increasing social distances between we can say different cultures of during that point of time, especially we can say backward tribes, because forests were being cleared to bring more land under agriculture, because second urbanization, I told you, second urbanization was driven by iron technology. That's why I talked about, that is iron society was there, and using that iron technology they were clearing forests, and as they were clearing forests to bring land or agriculture, more and more backward tribes which were living in isolation, they were becoming part of the mainstream society. Okay, and they were becoming part of the advanced Varna society. What is that advanced Varna society? That is the iron technology. There is a technological gap was increasing, and now all these cultures were becoming part of one single empire, and that is increased the social tensions. That increased the gap between these communities. Okay, so overall we can say not so harmonious society was developing during that point of time. That is social aspect. What is economical? Like I already mentioned, it was second urbanization time period, 600 to 300 BC. Now it is increasing during 300 to 200 BC. Now Vaishyas, their position was growing very materially because they are the agricultural community. They were the merchant community. We talk about different trade routes like Uttarapatha, Dakshinapatha. Because of all those things, their material life was increasing very rapidly. And Shudras' status were also improving because Shudras evolved from being slaves to agriculturalists. Okay, initially they were slaves and they were given a status of, we can say, they can become agricultural laborers, and now they themselves can become peasants. Now they are earning on their own without depending upon their masters. Their material position was also increasing, and Vaishyas, of course, they were becoming the major important sections during this point of time. But as I already mentioned, they are not finding any kind of respect in the Varna society itself. They are part of that advanced Varna society in spite of economic growth, in spite of material growth, but they were still considered as the lower aspect within the society. Okay, so because of all these things, that's why I told you that hostility was increasing, especially lower Varnas hostility towards upper Varnas. Now, what are the religious conditions? Again, 600 BC to 300 BC, I told you age of Buddha and Mahavira. Okay, new ideas came into existence, not just Buddha and Mahavira, and even Ajivikas, Charavakas. Ajivikas believed in destiny. It is called as predeterminism. They did not worry about theory of karma. Okay, Charavakas, they did not believe in God. Okay, they were Gnostic school. Okay, Ashishvatavada. Okay, Akriya. So, different kind of religious ideologies. New sects emerged during this point of time, and those new sects are Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivika, Charvaka, just I mentioned. And now, because of these new ideologies, one ideology criticized other ideology, and of course, initially we can call them as ideology, which went on to become new religions, particularly Buddhism and Jainism. Now there was intolerance towards one another. Look at the entire social status, look at the entire economic status, look at the entire religious status of that particular point of time. The society was not so much harmonious during that point of time. Okay, and of course, it's a criticism of one ideology by another, because Ajivikas criticized Buddhism and Jainism, which emphasizes too much upon karma, otherworld life. But Ajivikas talked about, just worry about this life, why are you worrying about other life? Same thing by Charvakas. And of course, Buddhism and Jainism directly challenged the Varna hierarchy of Vedic society. Okay, so this was the condition with which Ashoka inherited the throne. Okay, there is a lot of increasing intolerances towards each other, socially, economically, as religiously also. Okay, and of course, we talk about now Ashoka as a welfare-oriented ruler. He had to maintain order in the society. And we already talked about conflicts were growing in all aspects of life, whether religious aspect or social aspect or even religious aspect. Okay, so this is the same thing we can also interlink with Akbar in medieval times. You know, one mains question asked this time, Akbar's religious syncretism. Okay, 2025 mains. Exactly. Akbar also brought certain kind of policies like Dinilai, Salekal, okay, Ibadat Khana debates. So he was trying to bring the different diversities into one. Okay, you want to bring tolerance towards each other. He was trying to bring tolerance between different religions. The same thing here too, Ashoka. Okay, that is an interrelation we can talk about. Okay, so because of increasing, we can say conflicts, now the rulers were guided by welfare aspect. The rulers were enlightened. So they wanted to consolidate the diversity into unity. The same thing we can also interrelate to our constitution, right? Isn't it? That we have respected all religions, okay, all languages, okay. Everybody has given equal status in our society, in our economic system, in the constitution, okay. So this is the, we can say, interrelation we can talk about from ancient, medieval and modern times too, okay. Now, like I mentioned, you want to consolidate the diversity into unity, diversity of ideas. Therefore, you got of many choices, we could say, particularly two choices. One, you could have used the authority. That is, you could have used force, you could have used this military to bring that particular, we can say, order in the society. So, enforcing his will upon the people, but that would be short-lived. Because when you bring changes in terms of, we can say, appealing to conscience, appealing to, we can say, rationalism, appealing to the mindsets of the people, rather than forcefully imposing upon them, that's what Ashoka thought. So, he wanted an imaginative policy. And that imaginative policy which could be approved by everyone, and that policy was Dhamma. That's what we are going to understand, righteousness. You want to bring that virtues among the people. They were qualities of virtues, so everybody could follow, and that would bring harmony in the society. And the Dhamma ultimately consolidated into that universal law or social or religious order to bring that harmony in the society, to bring that harmony among religious ideas. So this is the background for Dhamma policy of Ashoka. What are the reasons for formulation of this Dhamma policy? So we talked about background before Ashoka came, what was the social conditions, how the social and religious conditions were developing or shaping up during Ashoka's time period. And now Ashoka wanted an imaginative policy. Now, what is Dhamma? Again, I told it is not a religion, trying to bring moral order in the society. It's kind of a code of conduct. Now, look at what is the contents of Dhamma. I already mentioned, we understand this Dhamma through his major edicts, the 14 major rock edicts. And in all these edicts, he emphasizes morality that could be approved by, we can say, Brahmanism, we can say Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivikas, Charavakas, all the Varna stuff during that point of time. At the same time, it was not a overnight policy, because Dhamma as a concept evolved over a period of time. Okay, it was not an event. Okay, rather it was a process, we can say. It's a process that evolved over a period of time. All of these edicts were not written down in one sheet of paper, or it was not given to people. Okay, but rather there's a considerable thought behind this one. Okay, that's what we are going to understand one by one. Now look at that one. I told it is a morality was emphasized. Like major rock edict 1, it says ahimsa, simple. The same ahimsa espoused by, we can say, Mahatma Gandhi during freedom movement. Okay, the same non-violence that was also espoused by Buddha, Mahavira. Okay, there is Pancha Mahavratas in Jainism. Okay, one of the concept is ahimsa. Now Ashoka is also saying ahimsa. Okay, that prohibits animal sacrifice because rituals and sacrifice were increasing during that point of time. And second one, it talks about the measures of social welfare. Again, I told you it was not a religion. It is asking people to follow ahimsa. At the same time, Ashoka is saying the government should also take some social welfare mechanism. Like we talk about directive principles of state policy, isn't it, right? People have rights, fundamental rights. At the same time, government also has duties. Now, Ashoka in major rock edict second says that one, the government should take some kind of social welfare measures. Look at that one. Medical treatment, construction of roads, planting of trees. We talk about today. We have, we can say, construction of Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana, isn't it? Okay. Now, planting of trees, national forest policy, is right. So then again, medical treatment for both men and animals, that we have universal health coverage, Ayushman Bharat. Look at how we can interrelate to present times also. Okay. So major rock edict 1 prohibits animal sacrifice, talks about ahimsa. And secondly, it talks about the responsibility of the government also. What Ashoka thought, it was not just the responsibility of the people to bring that righteousness or universal social order, it is also responsibility of the government. It's also responsibility of the state to bring that harmonious relationships instead of instigating one community against another. So rather we should bring, it is a duty of the government to bring every community together. Okay. Now, major rock edict 3 talk about, it declares that, okay, very simple, liberality towards Brahmanas, because many people have criticized Ashoka was against, we can say, one particular Varna. No, he talked about you should be open-minded towards Brahmanas as well as Shramanas. Now, what are these Shramanas? Shramanas are, that is Buddhism, okay, and then again Jainism, okay, then again I told you Ajivikas, Charavakas. So, all of them can be called as, we can say, Shramana movement. There is another movement between 600 to 300 BC. Okay, look at that one. What was happening between 600 to 300 BC, influencing policies between 300 to 200 BC. Okay, they should be open-minded towards both of them. Is neither against Shramana movement or is neither against Brahmanical movement. Okay, liberal openness towards each other. Okay, at the same time, you should follow the policy of virtues and respecting parents. So this is what he's trying to emphasize upon, the righteousness, the good path the people can follow, that everybody can follow. A universal policy that everybody could approve of. It doesn't matter which Varna you belong to, doesn't matter which caste you belong to. Okay, it is a virtuous path. Okay, a moral code of conduct. This is what Dhamma is all about. Okay, look at major rock edict 4th. It says, give importance to your own duty. We can link that with one of the great personalities of Karnataka, Basavanna. It talks about that is work is worship. Okay, then again, give importance to your own duty. Okay, don't too much interfere with others' lives. Just worry about your own duty. What are your duties? What you have to worry about? How do you improve your own position? How do you improve your own life? And to spread this message of Dhamma, and he appointed Dhamma Mahamatas. It is a kind of an officials we can talk about. They are Dhamma Mahamatas to spread this message of Dhamma. Answer. And rock edict 6, of course, all are major rock edict. And what is the instruction he gave to these officials? They can bring the report to the king whenever they intended to. And king wanted to know, the king was Ashoka, he wanted to know whether the people are following Dhamma. Okay, whether the officials are spreading the message of Dhamma, how the people are feeling towards it. Then, of course, appealing for tolerance, that is one of the important aspects of Dhamma. That is, one ideology should respect other ideology in spite of differences. That is what India is all about, that unity in diversity. Okay, that is what our constitution is also all about. That is what Indian freedom movement leaders, okay, they all, even the Britishers followed a divide and rule policy intentionally to divide communities on the basis of, along the lines of religion, caste and region and everything. But Indian freedom movement leaders, they always appealed for tolerance. Whether it was revolutionaries, whether it was moderates, whether extremists, okay, every leader of Indian freedom movement, they appealed for tolerance. Of course, there are some exceptions are there, but this is what we are following since ancient times. Because India is a land of diversity, especially 600 BC to 300 BC. That is how diversified thought system came into Indian land. And now Ashoka as the king, he wanted to consolidate all those things. He wanted people to respect every ideology, irrespective of differences. That is what tolerance is all about. Okay, and then again, rock edict 8, it talks about what? That is, Ashoka will be taking Dhamma Yatras. Now we appointed officials to spread the message. Now the king himself will take some kind of tours, that is Dhamma Yatras we can talk about, by the emperor himself to spread that message. And not just that one, he started following his own policy that he talked about in the very first rock edict, prohibits animal sacrifices. Now the emperor himself stopped going on hunting. Is leading from the front. A leader leads from the front. And this is major rock edict 8. Okay. And 9th one we can talk about, again, he criticized these ceremonies, he criticized superstitious beliefs, he criticizes meaningless rituals which were undertaken at the times of birth, death, during times of marriage, during times of journeys. Okay, he was against all those meaningless rituals. And today also we can talk about many states are trying to bring different kind of laws to ban some kind of superstitious beliefs, superstitious rituals. Okay, then again rock edict 10th. And he reasserted that there is a merit in following the policy of Dhamma. If you follow all these things, if everybody follows all these things, I think society will be more harmony, will be filled with more harmony. There will be less scope for, we can say, the intolerance towards each other. Giving respect to other ideologies, that is quite important. Giving respect to other language, giving respect to other, we can say, to just one other human being. Because Indian constitution again talks about that is dignity of individual. So we should respect the dignity of other individual. And shit. So this is the rock edict 10th. Again 11th, emphasis on the respect for elders again. Abstaining from killing animals one more time. Is emphasizing that one. Again liberality towards friends also. Okay. So he is trying to bring a kind of society that would be filled with respect towards each other. Respect within the family. Respect within the society. And the overall prosperity for the empire. Overall, the same thing that we can talk about, that if you start developing a village and that developed village will contribute for the development of one taluk, and that one developed taluk will lead to development of entire district, and that district will lead to states, the state ultimately the country. It always starts from small efforts at the local level. Okay. So this is rock edict 11th, and again 12th, again he is appealing for tolerance one more time. Another appeal that shows how much intolerance was there. And today also we can see there is a lot of hatredness, okay, which is highly unnecessary. What we have to do is that is respect each other irrespective of differences, in spite of differences. That is when the societies are built. That is how the societies are built. That is how nations have progressed. Yes, no nation can be perfect, but at the same time we can start from the local level to bringing this one particular kind of policies to bring, we can say, these harmonious relationships. And we can talk about the relevance of Dhamma even today. Okay. And then Dhamma contents, lastly, rock edict 13th. the famous war that everybody knows about, the Kalinga War. And now this is where in this particular rocket that Kalinga War's mention is there. Okay. So because of the bloodshed that happened in Kalinga War, that Ashoka changed his attitude and he was a worshipper of Shiva, and at the same time later he converted to Buddhism. Okay, it changed his attitude, worshipper of Shiva, turned towards Buddhism. And of course the king name it is mentioned, it could be quite vague because there is no proper evidence suggests which king he defeated over there. And now instead of Digvijaya, that is instead of going on wars, he replaced that with Dhamma Vijaya, that is winning neighbors, not through wars but through peaceful Dhamma. The sword which he used for wars, that was replaced, the war drum was replaced, and again it became law, that is Dhamma Gosha, that is winning everybody through Dhamma. Okay, and in the same rock edict also, Ashoka, he warns the tribals which were causing a lot of problems to merchants. There is a stern warning to forest tribes. Even though he is emphasizing upon peace, emphasizing upon ahimsa, he did not forget his duty to give warnings, at the same time to take action against the people who are causing troubles, that is causing intransigence. The forest tribes who were becoming part of the mainstream society, so they were having conflict with the mainstream society. At the same time, sometimes they used to took it to this dacoit as well as looting. That was causing law and order problem. Now in the same rock edict, he gives a warning also. That means as a ruler, he did not forget his duties. That's it. So rock edict, Moija rock edict 14th is there. Okay, that 14th is nothing. It is just the reassertion of all the 13. It's a summary of all those 13th. Okay, so this is what Dhamma policy is all about. The same kind of thing. Dinilai Akbar in the medieval times, in 16th century, he tried to bring a kind of an ethical society, Salekal, peace to all. That is the policy he brought. And he himself said that it's a duty of the ruler, according to Akbar, to maintain equilibrium in the society and make sure that the dust of sectarian strife is not rising. The same thing what Ashoka also was trying to do. Okay, so this is about a very short understanding about our Dhamma policy of Ashoka. So we can say it's an ancient path of righteousness to bring that harmony in the society. Okay, so hopefully got good understanding about this particular topic. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next session.